Yo, it's Freedom with Freedom Chasers, and today I'm here to tell you that you need to stop fearing your competition. Instead, it's time to start embracing them. Weird concept, I know. Getting over the fear of competition, let alone embracing it, sounds counterintuitive. However, if you look at the top performers, the market leaders in any niche or industry, from entertainment, music, sports, business, um, they weird concept, I know. Getting over the fear of competition and embracing it sounds counterintuitive. However, if you look at any of the market leaders, any of the top performers in from any industry, sports, fashion, business, entertainment, they all never none of them weird concept. I know. Weird concept. I know. Getting over the fear of competition, let alone embracing it, sounds counterintuitive. However, if you look at the market leaders, if you look at the top performers from any niche, any industry, from sports to music, entertainment, and business, fashion, none of them let their fear of competition stop them from achieving the goals that they set out to reach. It didn't stop them from, and like I said, you have those top performers, but then you have those top 10%. You have that 1%, right? Those with the Mamba mentality, those with the real grit. And they switch from, okay, getting over their fear of competition to actually embracing them. They embrace competition because it is where they're most comfortable. It is where they embrace competition because it's where they're most comfortable. They embrace competition because they understand the advantages of having competition. They understand the advantages of having to be aware of rival companies that are on your neck, rivals that are working just as hard as you, waiting for you to slip up. To the point where if you even put your effort down by the slightest percent, they will get the best of you. Further on in this video, we're going to be talking about how to acquire this mindset, how to attribute it to our startups, our business plans, our personal brands, and how to secure ourselves so tightly in a niche that we will be able to properly get the best of market leaders. To kick things off, we have to first break down our mindset when it comes to our fear of competition, why we have it, and why it's stopping us, right? Because this is most likely you. You're sitting here saying to yourself, but there's too much competition. I don't know where I would fit in, and is my product unique enough? The market is oversaturated and it's overflowing with too many people. How most people think about market saturation, or when they use the word oversaturation, simply put, it's a term that people with no grit use to make themselves feel better about their shortcomings, right? So, like a couple examples would be, for instance, let's say a trend comes, a niche grows, and they got in it, or they either got in it or they didn't got in it. So let's just say they got into the niche, right? And they're doing it. Now other people are coming into the niche and they're doing relatively better than them. And so now the person, Bob, is going to say, hey, the market is oversaturated. When in all actuality, the barrier to entry just got higher. The barrier to skill just got higher. These people are doing relatively better than you because they are putting in more time and effort than you. And so now Bob doesn't want to put any of that time and effort in, or they just lack the creativity to create a counter position or secure their angle. And so now they say, oh, the market is saturated, when in all actuality, that term just doesn't make sense. At least to me, it just doesn't make sense. There's 8 billion people in this world. I'm from the US, obviously. You're probably from the US if you're watching this, which means that there's 342 people that live in the US. So I just want to understand, how are markets saturated when this is what we live in? We live in a big recycle. It's a recycle emoji. We live in an ecosystem, which in the business world is called the economy, where there's supply and demand. That's like saying you can't go to New York and open a successful burger shop because it's oversaturated. There's thousands of restaurants. That's like saying you shouldn't become a doctor. You're not going to make that money because it's oversaturated, or a nurse, or anything else. See, people apply the word oversaturation to anything that requires significant time and effort to pull in. You can become an entrepreneur. You can become a content creator. You can become a financial expert. You can become a real estate agent. Fucking anything that you want. It's not oversaturated because there's millions of people who naturally are going to gravitate towards a whole bunch of different industries. And so, right here, an actual saturated market occurs when a product or service has reached its maximum potential within a marketplace. See, that's a different story. That is not the same as how other people view or explain market saturation or oversaturation. That's not the same thing. And we don't have to dive deeper into that. However, I did have to remove this idea of oversaturation from your mind before we get into the topic of fear in retrospect to competition, because it is the main thing that I hear people throw out whenever they talk about populated niches. Whenever they talk about populated markets filled with competitors and filled with consumers, filled with a lot of attention, they throw out the word oversaturation and they throw it out and they get discouraged and they don't want to enter anymore, right? Because what they're actually trying to look for, what a lot of people try to look for when they throw out the word oversaturation, is an empty market. When people think of an empty market, right, they think of this, that they've just struck gold. They think that nobody's ever thought about it before, and they're about to be a freaking gazillionaire. Speaking to the audiences, the ultimate guru, they've struck gold, the California gold rush. They've found the untapped fountain of youth, and they are about to become filthy rich. When in the reality, it is literally not that. 9 times out of 10, this is the reality. This is the only image I'm going to put. You see how I have multiple images here and this is the only one? Yes. You see how this is desolate? There's nobody in this town? That is 9 times out of 10 what an empty market is going to look like. There's nobody there. There's no demand. There's no people. They don't want to involve themselves with it. Nada. So just to put it into further context of why empty markets fail, these are really the main reasons right here, right? Number one, there's a lack of demand because there's no direct problem. There's no direct need, urgency, and there's no direct solution. It's not in anybody's mind. They can go without it. They can live their life and not think about this problem or issue, right? There's just no demand for it. Number two, it's just unprofitable, simply unprofitable, maybe in the key integral factors of the business, end users, the manufacturing cost, the cost of marketing, the cost that it would take to develop the project each time, it maybe it's something relatively new and it just costs a lot of money, like semiconductor chips, things like that. Number three would be you're required to educate audiences, which I guess can be put into number two. However, you're required to educate people on what the product is every single time. Because it's empty, because it's relatively new, you have to educate them on every single aspect. And then you have to create the problem. Then you have to create the solution to the problem that you just invited into your life 15 minutes ago on the same call. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, for reference, you can think about it in the terms of like Bitcoin in 2009. The video of that guy that was talking about investing in Bitcoin for cents. Is it going to break the bank? No. Was Bitcoin going to blow up? Did he know that? Of course. Did he know it was going to be the future? But the mass majority of people had no idea. And you can't blame them because there was no urgency. There was no demand. There was no problem. It's a chip. It's a coin. Technology was not where it was supposed to be. So how are you going to expect people to do that? Now, on the flip side, right, you do have successful empty markets, successful innovations, and where, social networks, right, social media, Uber, these things were not the common ground back then. These things were innovative. You didn't think that you was going to be sharing rides with strangers or posting yourself on social media and doing that shit all single day, right? However, they came and they were super innovative. Now, if you have something like that, a startup, and it's going to be truly innovative, then go for it. Shoot, get that empty market. However, majority of the time, you're going to be faced with these three common issues right here. For the duration of this video, I want you to keep this image ingrained into your mind because this is exactly what we're talking about. It is the illustration of the relationship between a market or a niche or an industry and competition. And see, the blue ocean is exactly what we just talked about, right? The blue ocean, this guy right here, he is the Bitcoin of 2009. He's literally struck gold and found the fountain of youth that we talked about. He's found that untapped market and he's about to abuse it and make some generational wealth, right? He's the Mark Zuckerberg of the next startup of what's going to change the world. And as you can see, there's no competition around him because there's no demand yet, right? Which is fine. And so cool. Now we have the red ocean. There's a lot of competition because there's a lot of demand. So think about your drop shippers, restaurant owners, consultants, coaches, get fitness, um, all that, right? There's validity in the market, there's demand, and there's a lot of competition. Now, it's not necessarily bad to be here if it fits your business, right? Because you could be one of the people in the red ocean that's dominating. You could be one of the people that is in the blue ocean that has a innovative startup. However, for people like you and me that are in valid niches, that are in niches which have a lot of competition, we have to follow a different protocol, right? So on this graph, we kind of want to be here. And this is another theory. This, what I just circled out, is called the purple ocean. And I know it's cliche, right? Blue ocean, red ocean makes purple. Cool. But the purple ocean is what we talked about in the three foundational principles in my last video, if you didn't see it. And the video essentially talked about defining your angle, right? Defining your counter position in a niche, serving a specific set of people in a demographic, in a niche, right? That are underrepresented, that are underdeserved. And that's where the purple ocean comes in. But before we dive deeper into that, I actually want to talk about competition and what competition truly signifies and how we can use it to our advantage. Because we can't define our counter position, we can't define our angle without the red ocean, without this valid market. All of this competition here, they've done it for us. They've done all the testing. They've succeeded and they failed. They've done all the strategies that we can now either implement or allocate to our strategy in order to grow and define our path. So without these blue oceans, like once again, you can be in your respective ocean. However, without either of these, you can't be in the purple ocean. Once again, you cannot define your own path without utilizing both sides. So let's finally talk about what competition proves, right? What does it signify in the market? What can we take from our competition to just get a basic understanding of what's going on? Number one, audiences have a problem. It proves that audiences have a problem. They're aware that they need to fix whatever is going on in their life. It's constantly on their mind and they want a solution for it. So, Manscaped, they want better music. They want to understand how to close their sales calls. A restaurant owner wants to understand how to dial down their menu items and keep good margins. Um, People want to understand how to properly and efficiently start doing affiliate marketing, maybe with the use of AI, right? So these are specific problems and it's problems on all levels. And we have to remember that we still have subcategories in specific niches, right? The next thing we have is that they are actively searching for solutions on every single level. These people are searching for solutions and they want people to come out and tell them and give them the value that they have been looking for. And finally, they're spending. The most important part, the reason why you're watching this video, the reason why you're starting a business, we all want profit, right? And what does spending mean? Spending means that's our validity. Spending means that there's validity in the market. I don't mean to be redundant. I know that you probably already know these things, but this is the foundational principles that when you look at your market, when you understand the fact that there is competitors and you see what they're doing, this is the automatic proof that you need to get. And if any of these bells are not being rung, then you need to leave immediately. Now, there's two questions that we have to ask ourselves, two deeper questions that we have to ask ourselves in terms of competition to move forward. The two questions that you must ask yourself is number one, Who are the market leaders? So in your niche, the market leader is referring to basically the top, let's say the top five options that you would go to out of everybody else. The first thing people that come to mind. So you want to go to a store, you're gonna go to Target, you're gonna go to Walmart, right? You want a speaker, you're probably gonna get with Bose or JPL. You want to eat, you're gonna get McDonald's. Probably gonna get that wing spot that is big in your neighborhood, right? Like it's just the no-brainer option. The second question that you have to ask yourself is what dominion do they have over the market or the need? Which is just my fancy way of saying how are they dominating the market? Which is just another way of saying how are they influencing the market? See, our market leaders are going to be the ones that set the tones for how we internalize trends or be the ones to actually make the trends. They're the no brainer option that consumers are just going to go to, right? And we need to understand why. Beyond the fact that they have a big budget and big teams to take and close calls and give support as fast as possible. Besides that, what are the ideologies, what are the strategies and the methodizations that they're including into their plans to be able to retain customers? It is our job to understand what promises they're making, right? What are the key core features, the core benefits that they're providing to their consumers, to their niche, right? And better yet, who are they exactly targeting? Who are they exactly going over and trying to cover? With market leaders, it either gets to the point where they're dominating a specific sector, right? Or they're dominating a broad sector. So this is our, little pie chart. And they could have most of this, most of this, right? But then this part over here is left out. And I know my drawing, as always, sucks, but due to the scribbling we have here. So this is majority of the niche, right? This is majority of the niche. This is majority of the broad audience that they are captivating, right? Which means that obviously, you know where I'm going with this. This entire slice, this entire piece is left out. They're not getting the exact value that they need. Not because this market leader, whoever they may be in your respective field, is necessarily not trying to help, but they have too much on their hands. So that obviously leads to negligence. And negligence is the exact type of crack in the armor that we are looking for. We need to, with our market leaders, we need to look for gaps. We need to look for cracks in their impregnable shield wall. We need to look for cracks in the armor that is going to give us the edge over them. Because, see, when it comes to established market leaders, when it comes to established companies, they already have so much on their hands, right? Because with trying to expand, they cannot try to expand faster than they have to maintain their lifetime customers, right? Think about that for a second. They already have all their problems that they need to deal with. They have their consumers, their customers, their niche that they're targeting, who they have to deal with. And then on top of that, they have to figure a way to branch out without jeopardizing their existing audience. This means that you can now pour all of the resources, all of the time that you have into representing and giving the needs to that specific portion of this pie, right? And so, because think about it, what else do you have to do besides that? As the smaller brand, as the startup company, as the personal brand, right? That is starting from zero or maybe starting from 10K, just starting from a lower point than anybody else around you, starting from a lower point than these market leaders, you instantly achieve something that they don't or that they've lost. And it's that level of authority, it's that level of superiority that they have because they're a multi-million dollar company or they're a huge personal brand. See, you get to establish trust because I understand where you're coming from, right? I understand where you're coming from as the consultant who's been in the game for a while and finally is getting some type of breakthrough. I understand where you're coming from as the food truck who's giving absolutely amazing services, absolutely amazing food for a cheaper cost because you come from not getting an abundance of food at a cheaper cost. I understand where you're coming from as the startup who's trying to achieve their funding. And so now you're making content based on that. See, it's just these are the things that you have to prioritize, right? And I talked about this before in my last video, but it's just once again instilling this into your mind. It's not about seeing these big brands and getting stressed out, getting fearful of them to the point where you don't have the money. That's not your goals. You have to analyze and with integrity, with honesty, understand what you have as the smaller brand. You can build trust, you can build familiarity, and you can compound on that. It's a different level of connection. It's a different level of loyalty that you are going to cultivate from the people around you that is only going to compound. We can get into direct response marketing. We can get into referral strategies and the things that you could do when it comes towards building a community. But I honestly want to leave that up to you because I don't know what the hell niche you're in. You could be in fashion, you could be a chef, you could be a consultant for rabbit hunters. I don't know. However, I hope that this video provided you with enough insight on how to rewire your brain when it comes to competition, to not fear them, and how to internalize what they're not doing and how to attribute it to what you're going to do. I'm Freedom Chasers. I'm tired as hell. Goodbye.